Alright guys, today I'm going to go over the notes we had in class on solving systems of equations by using substitution. So we're going to have two equations given and we're going to find the point that they share, and that's going to be our solution. First step, we're going to solve an equation for y unless it's already solved for y. Second step, you're going to substitute your answer for y from the first step into the second equation that you haven't used. Step 3, solve the resulting equation for x. Step 4, substitute your value for x that we found from step 3 into either equation and solve for y. Step 5, just put it together as x comma y. Alright, so first example, 4y equals 12x. 2x plus y equals 10. Pick one equation, the easiest one, and solve that equation. I'm going to pick the shortest one and solve for y. I want y by itself. 4 is multiplying or touching the y, which is multiplication. To get rid of it, I have to do the opposite operation, divide by 4. Y equals 3x. Step 2. Substitute your answer for y into the second equation. So this is my second equation, the one I haven't used. 2x plus y equals 10. Then we're going to get the answer from step 1 and substitute it in place of y. Y equals 3x, so we're going to put 2x plus 3x equals 10. So instead of y, I put what y equals. Then we're going to do step 3. Step 3 says to solve the resulting equation for x. Excuse me. So we have two x's. We need to combine them. So 2x plus 3x is 5x. And then we need to solve for x. So it's touching, the 5 is multiplying or touching the x. So we have to do the inverse operation of multiplying is division. So divide by 5, divide by 5. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. X equals 2. Step 4. Substitute your value from x from the previous answer into either equation. So always pick the shortest one, easiest one, for y equals 12x. And we found that x equals 2, so we're not going to write x anymore. We're going to substitute 2 in place of x. Do a little bit of math. 12 times 4 is 24, and then we're going to solve for y. We want y by itself. We need to get rid of that 4. It is touching the y, so that is multiplication. The opposite of multiplying is division. If I divide on one side, I divide on the other. Y equals 6. Step 5, just put them together as an ordered pair. First the x, 2, then the y, 6. Alright. Then I showed you guys how to check your answer in the calculator. So let's check our answer. We go to a calculator page. You want to go to Menu, Algebra, and today we're learning about systems, so solve systems. Yes, we have two equations. Yes, they're x and y, so just hit OK. First box, put first equation for y equals 12x. Second box, second equation, 2x plus y equals 10. Then just hit enter. Okay, see 2x, 2 comma 6, 2 comma 6. So this is correct. Alright, I still need you to show your work in your homework. So please check your answers with the calculator, but I need you to show your work. Let's go with practice number 2. Second example, first practice problem. Again, this is already solved for y, so I don't have to do much work. Oh, first step is to solve for y, and it's already done, so I don't have to do it again. Y equals 6x. Pick whichever equation. I like starting with the shortest one. Then step 2, you're going to substitute the answer from 1 and substitute it into the second equation we haven't used, 4x plus 18. Now, if this is what y equals 6x, then instead of putting y, we're going to put 6x in place of y. Right? Now we go to step 3. Step 3, we have to solve for x, but I cannot solve with two x's, so we're going to cancel the one on the right side by subtracting a 4x. 4x minus 4x is 0, then I'm only left with the 18. But if I subtract a 4x on the right, I subtract a 4x on the left. 6x minus 4x, 2x. Now I can solve for x. This is multiplying 2 times x, so the opposite, we divide. To cancel out the 2, we do what we do to one side of the equal sign, we do to the other side, divide by 2, x equals 9. That's our first answer. Step 4. Substitute the x into either equation, always use the easiest and shortest, in place of x. So y equals 6 and 9 equals x, so parentheses 9. 6 times 9 is 54. So in step 5, just put them together, 9 comma 54. Always put the x first, then the y. That is our coordinate, that is our answer. And again, we would check it with the calculator. Menu, in a calculator page, algebra, solve systems, yes to equations, yes x and y, hit OK. First equation, y equals 6x, y equals 4x plus 18. Enter, and we know it's correct. Alright, second example, or third example, second practice problem. Step 1, solve one equation for y. Well, there's one equation that's already set equal to y, so let's start with that one. Step 2, substitute your answer from answer 1 into a second equation. X plus y equals 5 is our second equation, and instead of putting y, we're going to substitute y, and we're going to put x plus 1 where y was. So we're going to substitute it in place of y. Everything else stays the same. The only thing that changed was the y. Now it's x plus 1 because that's what our first step told us, y equals. Then I'm going to start solving for x, but I cannot solve if I have two x's. So we're going to combine them. 1x plus 2x plus 1x is 2x. Bring down the plus 1 and the equals 5. Now we're going to solve for x. Get rid of the 1 first by doing the inverse operation, subtracting a 1, cancels it out. Then you do the same thing on the right side of the equal sign, 5 minus 1. 5 minus 1 is 4. Bring down the 2x. Almost done here. We need to get rid of the 2. It's multiplication. The opposite is division. X equals 2. First part of our answer. Excuse me. Alright. Step 4. Substitute your value for x into either equation. I'm just going to pick the first one that we have here. Get your x, substitute it in place of x. Y equals, x equals 2, so 2 plus 1. 2 plus 1 is 3. So there's my other answer. And step 5, put them together. X goes first, like in alphabetical order, x and then y. Okay. Then we would check it with the calculator. Number 3. Step 1, first thing is to solve one equation for y. Both of them you're going to have to solve, so it doesn't matter which one you start with. I'm just going to pick the first one, and I'm going to solve for y. So I'm going to get rid of the 3 by subtracting a 3x. That way y is by itself. But if I subtract on one side, I have to subtract on the other. Because 3 has an x, I cannot subtract it from 5 because they're not like terms, so we're just going to put it next to the 5. Now, I cannot have a negative y, so remember, if there's nothing in front, there really isn't 1, so we're going to get rid of it. Because it's touching the y, that's multiplication. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to divide by a negative 1. When I divide by a negative 1, or when I divide, I have to divide everything. So it's going to change all my signs to the opposite. So y equals negative 5 plus 3x. Step 2. Substitute your answer from y into the second equation. So this is the second equation, the one we haven't used. And instead of putting y, we're going to put what y equals. So negative x plus 2, and I'm not going to put y, I'm going to put parentheses, and it's a big number, so I'm going to leave enough space. Well, it's a binomial, so it's two numbers. And we're going to substitute them in. Oops. Okay. Now I'm going to go to step 3 where we're going to solve for x, but I cannot solve if I have parentheses. So we're going to distribute. Negative x, and then 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. 2 times negative 3, positive 3 is positive 6x. Now that I have distributed, there's no more parentheses, I can combine like terms. We have a negative 1x plus a 6x. Those are like terms, and together they're going to give me 5x. We still have the minus 10 there, equals 0. Now I can solve for x. Get rid of the minus 10 first by doing the opposite. Add a 10. What I do to one side of the equal sign, I do to the other side. 0 plus 10 is 10. Bring down the 5x. Last step there. 5 times x. We do the inverse operation, which is division. X equals 2. Now we do step 4. Substitute the x value into either equation. I'm just going to pick that first equation, 3x minus y equals 5 from right here. Substitute in 2 in place of x. So in place of x, I'm going to put parentheses 2, 3x, or parentheses 2 minus y equals 5. We know 3 times 2 is 6. And you can kind of already see that the answer should be 1 because 6 minus 1 equals 5. But I'm just going to finish doing a little bit of algebra, cancel out the 6, so minus 6, negative y equals negative 1. Divide by a negative 1, divide by a negative 1, so that the y can be positive 1. Step 5, put them together, the x first, which was 2, then the y. Example number 4. We're going to first step says to solve for y, but this one's already solved for x. See how it already has x by itself? So let's switch it. Now instead of solving for y, let's start by solving for x. So half the work is done for us already. Then we go to step 2, and now we're going to substitute the x value into the second equation. 15x minus 2y equals 94 is our second equation. And instead of putting x, we're going to put parentheses and what x equals from our first step, negative 3y. Copy the rest of the equation because nothing is going to change from that equation, only the x that we substituted. 15 times negative 3y, negative 45y, minus 2y equals 94. Now we're going to solve for y, but I have two y's, so I'm going to combine them. Negative 45 minus 2 is negative 47y. Last step there is to divide by a negative 47. What I do to one side, I do to the other. Divide by negative 47. This cancels out to give me a 1y. And 94 divided by negative 47 is negative 2. First part of my answer. This was all step 3 when we solved for y. Now let's go to step 4. We're going to plug in the y equals negative 2 into one of the equations. Always pick the shortest one. X equals negative 3y. In place of y, I'm going to substitute in a negative 2. And just do a little bit of math. Negative 3 times negative 2, positive 6. So my answer in step 5, we put it together, negative 2, comma 6. So if I was to graph this, I know that they would intersect, both lines would intersect at this point. Or if I was going to check the table, if I graph both of them, check the table, they both would have a negative 2, comma 6. Alright, let's see our homework. What I'm going to ask you to do is only do number 1 through 8, and 9 and 10 I'm going to have as extra credit. So if you didn't watch this video, then you don't know. See you guys tomorrow.